writing a case study. My voice is trembling just considering it.
I know, and I think there's nothing that scares or worries students more than having to write a case study. And even thinking about it has brought some mild trauma back from my time as a student when I was presented with this. And I think if you've got some quite easy steps or easy ways of thinking about it, it takes the anxiety off. And the first thing I'd say about writing a case study is always, certainly in counselling, we're always writing it to weave in the theory that we're being taught. The whole point of a case study is to show how you're using the theory to help a client, or a client presents within the theory. So if we just take, say, a person-centered theory, introjected values and conditions of worth, it may be that a client comes and says, well, I have to do as my family says, and I haven't got a voice in my family. And, if I was writing a case study, I might just quote that and then write underneath, this would strongly link into introjected values and conditions of worth. So there's a starter, Ken.
Weave in the theory. I like.
Yes. Yeah.
I when we speak about case studies, I actually think back to a few careers ago when I was working in construction, and we would go in and we would do an installation. And then after doing the installation, we would create a case study. This case study was to evidence what we had done and show other prospective buyers or other people considering maybe putting the same installation in, what the process is and what that looked like, what it was like beforehand, what the process was of putting it in, and what the benefits or changes were as a result afterwards. And a case study within academia is similar to that. We're evidencing and we're showing what happened and what difference happened as a result of what we were doing. And instead of talking about the chemical components that we might have put in the building project or the mechanical components, we're talking here about the theory that we may have used and how that was weaved in and what it was like in the beginning, what the process was like, and what the difference afterwards is. And that is what a case study is all about. And I think it's important to take that 30,000-foot view, to step back from it. That's all it is. We're saying this is how it was, this is what we did, this is how it is now.
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. And I think I'd say that when we're writing case studies, they shouldn't be clinical case studies like we're treating a patient, or indeed building a project. They should involve ourselves and how we've integrated with the therapeutic relationship, and also use the language of therapy. They're not psychological case studies. I remember many years ago when I was teaching in a warding body, and they were very clear that they weren't kind of psychological case studies where we're talking about illness and presentation. We're talking about real living human beings, how they presented, and how we interacted with them using the theories that we were taught to help facilitate a change in them. And one of the things that I was always taught when I wrote case studies was to do a pen portrait of the client. Now, I was so uneducated when I went to my counselling class that I thought you had to draw a picture of the client. And I said to my tutor, I don't think I can draw. And she said to me, no, Rory, she said, it's not drawing. I could see her face now trying to hold back the laughing. And she said, no, she said, you have to write how the client presented. How would I present? What would you write about me? And I think that's really important. It sets the stage. So I might say, Ellie was a tall woman with short blonde hair, and she sat in the chair with quite a composed posture, very friendly, very engaging, lots of eye contact. And that would be a pen portrait. It allows the person who's marking it to get a real sense of who this person is, bring the humanity into the discussion.
Yeah, I think that's really important that we're speaking about real people. When we're doing a case study, very often you may be looking to some work you've done with a client, or you may have buddied up to do some simulated sessions to write your case study. But on the other side of a case study is a real person. And I like how you're saying, Rory, to remove that clinical distance and bring the real person in. Who is this person? And I love how you've described the pen portrait. I could see you there busking with your easel up, doing the pen portraits of people coming by. And of course, we talk about pen portrait, and that is a description. Who is this person? Who is this person, so that we can understand them and see the humanity in them as we go through the case study. And of course, this is something that a clinical supervisor would do as well. You know, if you go as a counsellor to supervision and you were going to be bringing a client, the supervisor would gain an understanding of the humanity or the realness of this person through your frame of reference. So we're engaging in that activity. If you've ever been into supervision, or even if you're still training and you may not have a supervisor, and you may have brought something to professional discussion where you're kind of bringing that person and kind of outlining who they are, that's a great starting point for a case study. I think also the next point on a case study is that case studies are required at different levels of training. You know, you're going to be asked for case studies maybe from level 4 right up. You may even be asked for a case study at level 3, and it's about having a look and asking what is the question. You know, when you're being asked to do a case study is an activity. As we've said, you know, it's a process of showing a series of actions and how it was before, what the series of actions were, and what the outcome is. So that's what a case study is. But within the question, when you're asked to write a case study, they will give you some clues of what they want you to do. And they may use words like evaluate the learning gained, analyze the learning gained, evaluate how this learning informed your work. And these are the words, they're called Bloom's verbs. And Bloom's verbs are the superpowers of tutors and awarding bodies and of those that will mark assignments. That those words require us to do something. So if we're asked to analyze, that's different to being asked to evaluate, which is different to being asked to describe. And I think having an understanding of Bloom's verbs is really, really powerful. So you see the word case study, you then go, right, I kind of know what they want. Then we start going through, take a highlighter and highlight any of the Bloom's verbs. Are they asking you to analyze or to list or to evaluate, and highlight those? Go look them up again and refresh your memory of what does analyze mean. And it's all available on the internet. If you put in Bloom's verbs analyze, it's going to give you a lovely description of what analyze is. And it informs how you write what you're writing. We're still writing the same stuff. We're still writing the same journey, but we're writing it to the criteria or to those Bloom's verbs. So hopefully there's some use for you in that.
Yes, Benjamin Bloom has got a lot to answer for. I met him a lot in my we'll get him in my teaching qualification. And of course, the reason these are asked for is they're testing the level of knowledge. You know, analyze and evaluate our high-level thinking skills. So you're asked to, usually in level 4, but as Ken alluded to, level 3. If you're producing a case study, they want to know how you've maybe applied the theory, your understanding of the theory as it works with the client, and analyze really is to take the separate parts and have a look at them. What happened with this introjected value? What happened when I used the necessary and sufficient conditions? And then the evaluation really is the outcome. After you've taken those component parts, I always think of it like baking a cake. You talk about the component parts of building the cake, the sugar, the icing, the cake mix, and you go into detail. And then when you put it all together, the evaluation is, how did the cake come out? What did it look like? Did it look like a cake? Did it taste like a cake? And I think that's how you, it's one way of looking at it. But pay attention to those verbs that are being asked in the case study, because those are the things you'll be marked on. They'll be marking you on the ability to take that information and present it in a way that matches the verb. So if it's analyze, you have to do an analysis. If it's an evaluation, you have to do an evaluation. And I guess my cake analogy is quite a simple one, but I think it gives an idea of analyze and evaluate.
Delicious nonetheless, Rory.
Oh, I like cakes.
Well, I'm imagining it now, and it's chocolate. It's chocolate. It's got lovely chocolate icing on it, and I'm eating it, which would be the end of the case study, the eating part, and describing the taste of everything that you've put together. Anyway, moving away from cakes, just
move away from cakes, Ken.
So we're really speaking about now a case study in light of maybe some sessions that you've done with a peer, simulator sessions, or maybe with clients. If you're maybe working towards accreditation, you may be asked for a case study. If you're doing professional qualification post your grad, you may be asked to do a case study on work that you've done there as well. But another area of case study that we're often asked to do is that of supervision-based case study. And the process is exactly the same, but we might be looking to ourselves and what we took into supervision and how that played out in supervision. What were the outcomes of that? What did we use? What did we not use? And what difference did that make? So it's the same journey, but we would be looking to ourselves. We would look into our own supervision and doing the case study related to that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've produced one of my famous super duper handouts. To help you with this. It does reference a specific awarding body, but the language and the questions that are asked usually come up in different awarding bodies. And that handout is available for you to download and have a look at. And it's a really good handout because it gives you some really good tips on how to pop a case study together.
Yes, it's I think case studies like building Lego. You know, you've got all the little pieces in front of you, and it's just a matter of taking those pieces and putting them together. And Rory's super duper handout certainly shows some of the different ways to put things together. And I guess as we come to the end of this topic, just to kind of close with the closing of your case study. And of course, you're getting to the end of your case study, you're going to want to present some kind of a conclusion. It's kind of a so what? So I met with this client, we did all of these things, and this is what was presented, and this is the theory that I used, and these are the differences that I saw in the clients. And so, and again, you'd look to what are they asking you in the question? They may ask you to reflect on your learning. What did you take away from this? So there is a conclusion. So you're starting, as Rory put over so nicely, with that pen portrait describing who this person might be, to put a humanity to that. But we're going to be ending it as well, and it just kind of brings everything to a lovely close. And that may be depending on what the question is and what you're asked to write about in your case study, it may be what you take away from this. And the interesting thing when you're looking at your own learning from something is it doesn't always have to be something you did. It can also be something you didn't do. You know, when you're looking back on something, you can say, let's take supervision, for example, and I took this to supervision. My supervisor suggested such and such and such. When I got with the client, that no longer seemed appropriate, so I chose not to use it because of such and such and such. So it's not always what we did do. It's also sometimes about what we didn't do. We may say, you know, looking back on that now, maybe I could have used this, and that may have had a different kind of outcome. So it's just that acknowledgement of the closing of your case study.
Yes, and you spoke about reflection, and I think that's really important, Ken, but also reflection. Slightly different, reflection. And reflection, being reflexive, is what you would do differently. So reflecting is, well, you know, I might, you know, I could have used this intervention, or maybe if I'd have used a bit more silence, or, you know, that type of thing. Reflexivity is saying, if this presented again, I might do A, B, C, and D differently. And it shows that you've taken the information and that you've reflected on it, and you've thought, this is how I'm going to change my practice. And I think that's really, really important. And being reflexive, I think, is something that's coming up more and more now in case studies. Yeah,
it is very, very much so. So, and if you look into reading the questions, you may see that word reflexive being asked there. Reflective, what was the learning? Reflexive, what are you going to do about it now?
Yes.
What are you going to do? What's the action? So reflexive reflect the learning, reflexive. How are you going to implement? What are you going to do differently going forward?